Live from the top of the Empire State Building. Get ready for the everyday entrepreneur experience. Sit back and crank up the volume. You're now listening to the Pest Equity Podcast.
Welcome all and welcome back to another great episode of Pest Equity Business Podcast. I'm your host, Vinny E. On episode 40, we're going to talk about customer service psychology and how you can adopt that to dominate your industry. So before I begin the show, I just want to give a big shout out to Mike from Cal Coast Pest Control. I want to say thank you for sending me all that company merch. We're going to be putting that up in our studio, and we will be releasing a unboxing video on Instagram in the near future. Thanks, pal. Now let's get on to the show. Customer service psychology. What does that mean? How do these cornerstone traits adopt in your service business to allow you to dominate your industry? The heart of any company can be found beating inside the walls of its customer service department. Providing superior customer service after the sale is a smart business decision that pays long-term dividends. All the money that companies spend on sales training, marketing research, advertising, and public relation initiatives to attract new customers is wasted if they can't keep them satisfied after the sale. Your satisfied customers' positive word-of-mouth endorsements have always been and always will be your company's greatest assets and most effective marketing program. The only surefire way to keep a customer happy is to consistently go the extra mile and exceed his or her service expectations. Now, several years ago, I read a fascinating article about a survey that asked people to list the top character traits they expect from a customer service representative. The survey data clearly identified 4 key character traits that dominated the feedback list. As we go through the list, think about how your customers would rate your character traits and the quality of service you provide. I've always said this: people buy feelings, not things. You'll find this phrase said by business strategists all over the world as they explain the importance of psychology in business. The phrase is catchy, and it's also true. Normally, when this phrase is used, it's concerning sales, but it works for customer service too. While sales teams need to make customers connect with the product, customer service teams make customers contact with the company. With deliberate and sincere use of psychological influencing techniques, you can turn an unhappy customer into a happy one and even stem negative feelings before they begin. So one study that I found states that 84% of customers said that their last customer service interaction did not exceed their expectations. This can happen for many reasons, but not effectively connecting with your customers is a key reason, and that's what inspired us to make this episode. Ask yourself this question: why is sincerity so important? People tend to get a little uncomfortable when talking about psychology when it comes to persuasion and influence. This discomfort stems from the belief that if you are acting deliberately rather than off the cuff, then your actions aren't sincere. And if you're not being sincere, then you must be trying to manipulate. In truth, manipulation is exactly what you're doing. Manipulation has negative connotations because nefarious individuals often manipulate people for their own gain, a gain that is often detrimental to the person being manipulated. However, at its most basic, manipulation just means the skillful handling of a situation for a desired outcome. This outcome can be good for you and good for the customer. This is exactly the kind of manipulation we're interested in, the kind that benefits everyone involved in the buying journey, the customer, and the business. This is where sincerity comes into the equation. Your customer service agents should sincerely want to help the customer. That's likely why you hired them. However, even with the best of intentions, customer service agents can make mistakes. They may accidentally say the wrong thing, use the wrong tone, or use awkward phrasing. All of these actions can derail the customer agent interaction into something negative and result in a poor customer experience. This is ultimately what we want to avoid. And this is why following psychology tips is so helpful. I always say language is everything. When we see language, we mean the words you choose, your tone, and what message these invoke in the customer. You'd be surprised how similar sounding phrases can spark totally different emotions in people. Several of these points will focus on the language and tone that should be used with customers because this is where your success lies. According to many psychology studies, 55% of communication is body language, 38% is the tone of voice, and 7% is spoken words. When it comes to customer service, your agents will likely be cut off from one element of that communication, and maybe even two. Customer service agents who talk on the phone can't rely on body language at all. They can only rely on tone of voice and spoken words. For agents responding to customers on live chat or SMS, they can only utilize the spoken word. When you cut out elements of this communication equation, you need to be much more careful with the parts you do have. Put simply, if the spoken word is all you have, then you can't afford to get it wrong. Let's dive into some of these tips. Focus on what you can do for the customer. Always focus on what you can do for the customer rather than what they can do for you. Customers aren't really interested in your achievements as a company, your success stats, and other things of this nature. If they're calling your company, it's because they are experiencing an issue that is personal, and they expect a personal response. They want to know, how are you going to solve the problem? So this should be your primary focus. Right as you speak. If you're talking to customers over a messaging platform, then write as you would speak. If you were talking to them on the phone or in person, your language should be conversational and informal. Customers want to talk to humans, not robots. Even when they talk to robots, they want them to feel human. So don't talk like a corporate robot. This one's very important, and I stress it a lot. Use we instead of you. If you're helping a customer complete a task, always use we rather than you. For example, let's pretend you're helping a customer log into their account for the first time. You should say, first we need to go to login portal rather than you need to go to the login portal. This is a subtle difference, but it makes the customer feel like you are invested in the solution to their problems. It makes them feel like you're tackling the problem together rather than instructing them on how to do it alone. Always, and I stress this, always use the customer's name. In customer agent interactions, it's common to clarify the customer's name when starting the conversation. However, there's another important reason to use a customer's name outside of the initial introductions. When people hear their name, they pay attention and they feel validated and important. You might need to clarify their full name initially, but after this, you should just use their first name because it's more personal and intimate. Now, of course, you should abuse this tip. Don't say the customer's name at the end of every sentence, but rather slip it in every now and again. This will draw the customer's focus firmly back to the interaction and let them know that you're invested in them as a person. You want to make customers believe that you see them as a person and a valued customer, not just another number. Use positive and confident language. If a customer is contacting customer service, then they are likely experiencing some level of anxiety about your company or product. Maybe something isn't working. Maybe they can't get into their account, or maybe they're confused about something. They're calling you because they expect you to solve the issue. So it's of paramount importance that you convey that you absolutely can help them. You should avoid using vague or uncertain language because this will make the customer's anxiety levels increase. Now, don't forget to show empathy. Showing empathy is critical to strike a connection with the customer. You should listen to their problem carefully and validate their feelings. One way to do this is to use empathy statements. Here are a couple of examples. I appreciate your patience. I understand your frustration. Thank you for taking the time to talk to us today. Your business means a lot to us. You are totally right. I'd feel the same if I was in your position. You might find helpful. Again, be an active listener, not a passive listener. Active listening is when you fully hear and comprehend what someone else is saying. It's easy to get distracted by your own thoughts, especially when we're talking to customers all day. However, it's essential that you actively listen at all times and display this to your customers. Here are some active listening tips. Repeat the customer's issue back to them. This serves two purposes. Firstly, you can make sure you understand the problem and that you haven't missed anything. Secondly, it shows the customer that you were paying attention to them and that you're invested in combating their problem. Try not to interrupt the customer unless it's necessary. To be a successful active listener, you need to let the customer finish explaining their problem in their own words. Once they're finished, you can respond, but try not to interrupt them mid-sentence. This one can be a little tricky because obviously you don't want to be locked into a conversation where a customer is rambling and getting off topic. If the customer starts to go off topic, you can interrupt to repeat their issue and try to offer the next step. Use door openers, not door slammers. This ties into the previous point on active listening, but it's important enough that it requires its own section. Door openers are phrases you can say that show that you are actively listening and encouraging the customer to continue talking. Door openers also put people at ease and make them feel more validated, both of which are extremely important when trying to build a connection. Door slammers are phrases that cut off the exchange and invoke a negative emotion in the customer. Here are some examples. Let's start with door openers. That's a good question. Do you want me to look into this for you? I can see why that's bothering you. I appreciate you bringing this to our attention. You should also use minimal encouragers. There are phrases that show you're still listening without you interrupting the customer's flow. Examples of minimal encourages are, uh-huh, I understand, then, or oh. Now let's jump into the door slammers. Asking the customer why can make them feel defensive. If the customer is explaining their issue and you have figured out where they have gone wrong, you shouldn't question why they took those actions or tell them what they should have done. People don't like to be criticized, even when they can accept that they made a mistake. It makes people feel inadequate and sometimes even personally attacked, even when it wasn't meant that way. This is just part of human nature and something we're all guilty of. Instead of saying, you should have done this, you can say, why don't we try? Even when you have to explain where the customers have gone wrong, it's important to stress that it isn't their fault and still make them feel validated. Respond quickly and be available. Nothing will make a customer feel more unappreciated than being ignored. When talking to customers, you must respond quickly to their questions. And if you need to take longer to reply, let the customer know that you'll only be a few minutes. Equally, it's important to be available for customers at all times. This can be trickier for smaller businesses, but with the support of today's technology, it's doable for businesses of all sizes. Chatbots are an excellent way to still provide customer service to your customers outside of your core operating hours. Always be reliable. You want customers to know that they can rely on your company to meet their needs. This includes swiftly solving their problems when they arise. Here are a few ways you can become a reliable business in the eyes of your customers. Resolve issues during the first interaction. Whenever possible, you should aim to solve the customer's issue during your first interaction with them. The majority of problems can be fixed quickly, so you should aim to fix them while you're talking to the customer. If a customer has to wait for you to solve the issue another time, they will be feeling anxiety until the issue is resolved. The more time that passes, the more anxiety is felt. Identify their needs. It's important to keep the conversation focused on the customer's needs. This means you should repeatedly clarify the issue and repeat it when you're doing it to solve it. This must be done organically, otherwise it can come across as unnatural and stunned. However, when done successfully, it's a great way to remind a customer that they are your priority. Ask if there's anything else you can help them with. Customers don't want to feel that you're rushing them on so you can get on to the next customer. They want to feel like you're working with them to solve their issues and that you're willing to put the time and energy into helping them. When you have solved their original issue, you should always ask if there's anything else you can help them with before ending the conversation. I want to leave you guys off with this last quote. One customer, well taken care of, could be more valuable than $10,000 worth of advertising. Well, I hope this episode helps someone out. I want to appreciate all the support. I want to thank everyone for following us on Instagram. All the people that have gone over to YouTube and subscribed to our channel. Stay tuned for that. It's coming soon. We're going to start doing them live streams. I want to thank everyone again for tuning in to another great episode of Pest Equity Podcast. If you want to be a guest on the show, you have a comment, concern, question, feel free, hit us up, pestequitypodcast@gmail.com, or you could DM us on Instagram, and we'll see you all on the next episode. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to another great episode of the Pest Equity Podcast. Be sure to share, like, and subscribe. Follow us on Instagram at Pest Equity Podcast and join the Facebook group. Have a question or topic for the show? Shoot us an email at pestequitypodcast@gmail.com.